Hey guys, I'm Randy.
And I'm Daniel.
We're two lifelong friends and musicians, but when we're not playing gigs, we like to talk games.
And today on the Gaming Gig podcast, we're discussing why are game developers choosing to not put their games on Xbox? Are y'all going to buy a MetaQuest 3S? And is anybody playing Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom yet?
Well guys, if you're new around here, welcome to the Gaming Gig podcast. We are glad to have you. We got a great podcast for you today. We're starting things off talking about Microsoft and Xbox. Microsoft has put out a sort of like a survey that they're putting towards developers to ask, specifically towards developers who do not have games on Xbox. And they're kind of asking them, hey, why aren't you bringing your games to Xbox? I think this is a really interesting thing, something I did not expect to happen, but interesting move from Xbox here.
It is interesting, and, I was telling Randy before we started the podcast, I feel bad, because every time we feature something about Tim and Tom's magical gaming box, I feel like we're just punching down, constantly, like, just burying them. We're just one shovel load at a time, just burying Xbox. But you know what? It is what it is. Sometimes you bury yourself.
Well, I mean, it definitely feels like it kind of reminded me when I was reading this. It reminded me of like Tinder, and I was thinking like, wouldn't it be hilarious if like you could like find out who swiped away on you? You can message them, be like, just a little survey, like why exactly why'd you swipe away on me? That's how it felt. Obviously, it's not that. I think that they genuinely are interested. Like, hey, where are the sticking points? Like, what's stopping you from bringing your games to Xbox?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, as a company, you have to be willing to ask why somebody swiped left on you, even though it may be difficult to hear. Because at the end of the day, it's about money. So, I do think they're genuinely curious because why else would they put this out?
Yeah, and it's true that a lot of devs are skipping Xbox for one reason or another. I mean, there are a lot of theories as to why, and we'll get to those in a little bit. But it definitely is true. We're seeing it more and more and more that like game will come out and it will be on PlayStation. It'll be on PC. Heck, it'll even be on the Switch, but it won't be on Xbox. And it's like, why? Well, maybe we can get to that today because I definitely have some ideas.
Maybe we can. We did ask a poll, Randy. Are you ready to move on to the poll?
Let's do it, yeah.
Okay, so we asked the Gaming Gig faithful, we said, what's the main reason that some game devs are choosing to not release their games on Xbox? At 17%, people said, well, there just aren't enough gamers on the old Xbox. At 16%, people said Xbox gamers just don't buy as many games. 45% of people, which was the majority, said the Series S is too limited, it's holding me back, and it's bad for the industry. And at 22%, people said, I don't know, bro.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was really interesting that the Series S is the reason that most people point to as being the failure of the current Xbox generation, and that's why people aren't wanting to port games.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too because I feel like you kind of discredited that argument with something you just kind of casually said a moment ago when you said that some games go to the Switch but skip the Xbox.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what makes me think, like, are we sure it's a Series S? Like, I know that it's become like a sort of a high-profile news thing whenever a game doesn't come to the Xbox and the developer specifically says, like, oh, we're having a hard time getting it running on the Series S. And that has happened a few times. And those have made big news stories. It specifically happened with, like, Baldur's Gate 3.
Yep.
I think it happened with, well, I think there were rumors that may have been why the Black Myth Wukong wasn't on Xbox. Mm-hmm. And I think there has been some others that just aren't coming to the top of my mind right now.
Yeah, but both those games went to Switch.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I remember playing Black Myth Wukong on Switch.
Well, I remember playing Baldur's Gate 3 with multiplayer.
Yeah, they got it running. They got the split screen co-op running on Switch.
Yeah. Yeah, and it ran good. It was fun in handheld.
Definitely.
It looked great on the OLED. Okay, I'll drop it.
Yeah.
It's not true.
we got a live comment here from Benjamin who said the Series S was my first current gen console I got, but then sold it shortly after I got a PS5. I don't see myself ever purchasing another Xbox. Yeah,
Yeah, welcome in, Benjamin. And I agree with some of this because I mean I didn't buy a Series S, but I also don't really see myself purchasing another Xbox unless something changes.
yeah.
I've said on the podcast before, I think I'm probably just gonna try my best to keep a fairly current PC and just let that cover that side of it.
Yeah, and that's something that the poll didn't really cover was the idea that Xbox has just been deprioritizing their consoles, and maybe that's just part of their strategy. But that I guess that's kind of covered in there are too few gamers on Xbox saying like, hey, Xbox doesn't really care about selling Xboxes anymore. So it's, there's aren't a whole lot of people there. And that's definitely legit, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. We got us another live comment here from Kit who said, it seems like there was a surprising amount of hate towards the Series S's capabilities. As a longtime Xbox gamer, I voted Xbox gamers don't buy as many games. Kit, I think that's what I voted as well in the Discord version of this poll. I agree. It does seem like there was a lot of hate towards the Series S, and I always thought it was kind of neat. I always thought it was a cool little console. But I'm also not a game dev, so...
I'm not either, and I'm not entirely sure that the Series S is the problem. I lean towards the Series S maybe being something that is very pro-consumer, but maybe wasn't the best decision, in terms of for this generation by Xbox. I think it is hurting them in some ways. I still don't think it's the main reason. I think if I had to vote as well, I think I would also vote for the Xbox gamers just don't buy as many games, and we'll get to that in a little bit because there's a comment specifically addressing that.
Yeah, we've actually got a really meaty comment coming up next that I'm excited to get to. Randy, are you ready to get to it?
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right, this one's you. This is all you because I read the poll. Hit us with the comment.
This one's from Kibbles and Bits, who says, I remember when exclusives used to sell consoles. I think that's what it is. Sony has the better lineup of exclusive consoles by far. Nintendo has classic exclusive IPs that keep it afloat. Plus, it has Japan hooked like a drug because it's definitely not creatively or being consumer friendly. They actively act like they hate their fans. I'm not sure I agree with that, just on a side note, but I see what you're saying.
Read the news,
continuing on. And Xbox used to have a few exclusives that could kill the competition. Halo, Gears of War. Now Xbox is the mainstream jack-of-all-trades entertainment system. It has a great interface for media consumption and casual gaming, but no exclusives that you can't find anywhere else. Most people who play Xbox are looking for quick matches on multiplayer and maybe some relaxed gaming on one of Xbox's many copy-paste shit-tier AAA games, looking at Ubisoft, EA, Activision. Those are everywhere. They're not just on Xbox. Okay, I didn't stop punching holes. Okay, sorry. When I think of high quality original content, beautiful storytelling, and fun gameplay, I think of Sony IPs. If I was a developer, that's where I'd want to publish my games for because I know it'll get recognized.
Okay, while Gampaw's taking a breather there, Kibbles and Bits, I just want to say thank you for your comment. I respect everything that you said there, and I wouldn't have poked holes in your argument mid-read. I think we should take our roles here as completely unbiased Nintendo gaming journalists very seriously. Randy, have you recovered from your long-winded comment?
I've recovered, and I want to say, I often struggle with reading comments, but I think I did pretty good on that one. I made it through.
We got another fairly long one later that I'll take for you.
Okay, I appreciate that.
But there is a lot to unpack there, and
yeah, definitely.
One of the things that stuck out to me is that they mentioned how Xbox used to have these exclusives that could kill the competition, and they just casually mentioned Halo and Gears. And I do feel like that is a huge part of what they're missing. Because as soon as they announced Gears, Gears 6? That's the most excited I've been about Xbox in a very long time. So if they just give us games like that, I think so.
Yeah, if they just had, it's like they had Halo at the beginning of the generation, but unfortunately, Halo just isn't what it used to be. No, I think we actually got some pretty big Halo news this week in that they're adding a third-person mode to some of the modes in the game, which is I think really cool because that's one of the things that has always kind of like turned me off against Halo is I'm not really big into first person shooters. I prefer third person shooters just personally. So I thought, man, that's kind of cool that they're finally it's like so anti Halo to put a third person mode in. I think that's the kind of shakeup that Halo needs for me to be interested as someone who's avoided it for so many years. I mean, I've played it. I've played Halo 1 and 2. I even played a little bit of 3. But it's just not my favorite series, and there's not a whole lot they could do to get me interested.
Well, I saw that about the third person mode, and I do think that's cool too. And I really like third person shooters like Gears. You know, I've played all the Gears games, and I love them. But and Helldivers, you know, that's a third person shooter for the most part. But I think both of those games stand in pretty stark contrast to the way Halo feels because they're not like the twitchiest shooters. You know, those are both games that, like, no matter how quickly you move your mouse, the way your character moves is different and a little slower, you know, and it's like, and Halo is like very fast twitch, like aim instantly with, you know, obviously mouse and keyboard is king. And that's going to feel weird, I think, in third person. So I don't know. I could see myself jumping in and trying it out, but I don't know that it's going to bring me back.
Well, they are introducing it on a mode basis. You cannot swap back and forth. And you will be, everyone who's playing in those modes will be third person. And I do think they've reworked some of the aiming physics and things like that so that it makes sense. They've said that it was actually pretty hard for them to tune in and get right. They're obviously not used to it. So, I think it's kind of cool. And they are doing it like I said, on a mode by mode basis. So like if you're playing third person, you know that like everyone's playing third person and it's in that particular mode.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. And that's better than what I thought it would be.
Yeah, definitely better than just being able to, you know, swap back and forth. Because one, it gives you a different, it could give you an advantage or disadvantage depending on what viewpoint you have. Because third person obviously gives you much more camera, you know, you get to see stuff better.
Definitely. So. Definitely.
But yeah, so we talked about, you know, them not having exclusives. That's a conversation we've had so many times. I don't even know that that's really anymore. It's obviously it is a slide against Xbox to kind of bring this up because it, like you said, the first time you've gotten really excited about Xbox is when this new Gears game gets announced. But at the same time, it's like Xbox has made a very concerted effort to not focus on exclusives. They're going a different path. So I don't think that they see that as like we got to get some exclusives. I don't think that that's their current like plan. I really don't.
Well, I don't either. I think it's clear that it hasn't been, and where has it got them? You know? Yeah.
Well, true. I mean, that it's true that we maybe will say like, hey, they're following through with this plan. It's obviously not working for them. At least it hasn't worked yet. It maybe they have some long-term thinking, and maybe it'll pan out for them. Maybe it will. I mean, who knows? But
yeah, I mean, you know, I respect Tim and Tom for trying to stay the course, but I think it's also important to maybe know when to turn the wheel a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm no business insider or anything. I just, you know, I like those Xbox exclusives, like Gears specifically, and I would like to see more of them, but I don't know that that's what we're going to get.
Speaking of their game plan, the next comment we have here really speaks to what truly has been Xbox's main, you know, like their main thing that they're focusing on these past few years.
Yeah. Absolutely. So this is from Randomized YouTuber. We've pulled some comments from Rando before. Rando says, one of the main things is the Game Pass. I don't know too much about the pay of the games on it, but I bet you don't get paid much if your game is put onto Game Pass. And we've talked about that before.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that this is a big, you know, thing is that Game Pass has basically kind of made Xbox gamers like kind of get used to the idea of not paying for games. And that kind of brings us back to our poll question of like, what's the reason? And the thing that I would have voted for is that Xbox gamers are just conditioned to not pay for video games because they have Game Pass. And
you wouldn't have
Game
voted
Pass
for that, though.
What's that?
You wouldn't have voted for that.
No, that's what I would have voted for. They don't buy as many games, is what I would have said.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I got
you. And then the reason they don't buy as many games is because they're used to Game Pass, you know?
Yes, absolutely. I was just trying to make a joke about your semantics, but I knew what you meant. Sorry. But I agree.
Okay.
I think that's the reason as well. I think they're used to, you know, they're used to the subscription model, and they are used to that money just getting auto drafted every month, and they try not to worry about it, and they just play what they can play and don't think past it.
Yeah, and I've heard stats that like a large majority of people who own an Xbox are subscribed to Game Pass, and it makes total sense. To me,
It does.
my Xbox is my home console Game Pass machine. That's like
Yeah.
the reason I have it.
But you also don't keep a subscription to Game Pass, in perpetuity.
No, I don't typically keep a Game Pass. Yeah, exactly. I usually will subscribe to Game Pass for like a month or just to play whatever game I want to play, and then I will unsubscribe from it. And if I want to buy a game, I just don't buy it on Xbox because it's just not what I associate with that console. Even though I love games, I actually really like the Xbox console. Like the comment that brought up earlier, about it being a good UI, like it's convenient. There's really nothing wrong with it. It's technically the most powerful console out right now until the PS5 Pro comes out.
Yeah.
So like I have no problems with it. I don't mind the controller. I like it, but still when I go to buy games, if they're not on Switch, I usually buy them on PS5.
Same here. I mean, if I have the choice between Xbox and PS5, I'm going to pick PS5 11 out of 10 times. As I've proven time and time again. Got a live comment from Kit who says Game Pass is mandatory for multiplayer in paid games. It's pretty hard not to have it. That's the point.
True.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I guess you could get by with Game Pass Core.
Yeah.
Which is like the cheapest option. But yeah, I didn't think about that, but you are definitely right about that. So that may explain why most people have it. Yeah, that's interesting. Good point.
That is interesting.
But I still think that I love Game Pass. I think it's a really great service. I think that even though it's gone up in price, and that is a bummer. I wish I hadn't gone up in price. But even it going up in price, I still think that it is for the general gamer who doesn't really care too much about having every specific new game that comes out. If they want to have just a good general library to choose from, and they are cool with doing some backlog stuff, cool getting the occasional new game that comes that's through Xbox, I still think it's a pretty good deal. I really don't have any problems with it.
No, I mean, as a consumer, I don't either. I mean, like you said, I mean, I definitely don't have anything, against the way the Series S or X feels. The UI is nice. I don't really love the controller, but...
Oh, you're talking about the Xbox controller, yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Xbox controller. But I don't hate it. I mean, I don't hate actually using it. I just think it's dumb that it's got no gyro and it, makes you use double A's out of the box. I just think that's stupid. But I don't hate using it. It's not a bad controller. So
I know I've argued this many times, but I kind of like the double A thing. But we don't have to go into that again.
boo this man.
I don't know. There's just something nice about it. Like I keep rechargeable double A's, and it just feels so much easier than having to plug in my controller all the time. And they last so long. The controller has really good battery life. So when I do change it out, I just kind of swap them out real quick. It's an instant full recharge, and I never have to put it on charge. I don't know. Don't boo me, Kit.
I have some rechargeable double A's too, and they are convenient.
Yeah.
And I hate having to use them.
I just don't see it being any worse than, in fact, I think it's more convenient than having to plug in my controller after I'm done using it every time, which is what you have to do with the PS5 controller.
Right. I even have a surplus of rechargeable double A's because my dad, for some reason hit a point where, he couldn't use the ones he had for some reason or something, and he gave me some. So I even have more than I really need. So I have plenty to, keep the Xbox controller, topped up, and it is very convenient. It takes no time to swap them in, and I just hate everything about it.
It does feel old. I know it's old technology, but I really don't have a problem with it. And in fact, in some ways, I prefer it. I don't know. To me, it's kind of it ends up being a draw. There are some pros and cons, and I just have no issue with it, really.
Well, at least you got booed. You ready for the next comment?
Yeah. Before we move on from Game Pass, real quick, I do want to point out PC Game Pass, which I know we're specifically trying to talk about the Xbox console.
Right.
But I do think that PC Game Pass has taken the role of the best version of Game Pass. It's pretty affordable. I think it's $12 a month. You still get the new games, And like, unlike the console Game Pass, which is about the same price, and you don't get the new games, you have to have Ultimate to get those.
Right.
So it's like, I feel like PC Game Pass is the move now if you are cool with gaming on your PC instead of Xbox.
Oh, I agree. That's the one that I intend to eventually get some more mileage out of.
Yeah.
If I put my plan into fruition of not buying another console. All right, we ready?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, this next comment is from Outspoken Seeker. Outspoken said, I do so like how not one option suggests that Sony's own hyper-selfish means of scoring exclusives have fostered this separation within the industry.
Yeah, this is something that, like, if I had another option, and maybe I could have taken away the I don't know why option on the poll, but if I had had another option, I would have put Sony, is just Sony's paying, for exclusives, which they are definitely doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that they're doing it so much that it's like that's the reason people are skipping out on Xbox is because Sony's just paying for every game to be exclusive to PlayStation. I just don't think that's true.
You remember when Xbox went through this deal of purchasing some smaller studios? They way overspent, in my opinion, because they spent I think it was something like $100 billion to acquire some rather small names in the industry like Activision, Blizzard, just to name one off the top of my head. And we were worried that Xbox was going to be dominating the exclusives. That was that's a weird thing to look back on.
It's such a good point. Like, you cannot say that Sony is being hyper selfish with exclusives. And that's the problem with the industry. When you have Xbox buying Activision Blizzard, buying Bethesda, it just, it doesn't add up.
Yeah. And I know that they spent $100 quadrillion or whatever I said, but Microsoft is one of the most profitable companies in the world. If they wanted to pay for another exclusive, they could.
Yeah, they absolutely could. They absolutely could. I think that realistically, developers would be a little skittish towards even accepting a deal from Microsoft making their game exclusive in fears that it wouldn't do very well if it was only on Xbox.
Agreed. I agree. But maybe if they had been doing that the whole generation and built up a little bit of that reputation, it wouldn't be like that. But that is where we are now.
Yeah, because we've had that happen with Square Enix and Sony.
Right.
Square Enix has expressed, a little bit of concern that maybe they messed up by making the Final Fantasy stuff console exclusive, saying it hasn't sold as well as they would like it to, and maybe if it had been, everywhere, it would have done better because it could have been on PC day one. It could have been on, that probably would have been the biggest market that would have helped them.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah,
agreed.
So,
well,
I don't know. I don't think it's Sony. I think that Sony does play a role in this, obviously, but I feel like one, you made a fantastic point about them buying Activision, Blizzard, and Bethesda and stuff like that. Like, you can't say that Sony is being hyper selfish by buying exclusives, although they're doing that. But at the same time, it's also saying it's kind of like going to Burger King and being like, "Hey, why are people, choosing to not eat here?" And they'd be like, "Well, because McDonald's is just killing it." It's like you got to look within. You know what I mean? It's not about the competition, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. And the key word there is competition. These companies are competing, and I don't know. I'm just not gonna I'm not gonna fault Sony for maybe competing better.
Yeah, I mean, even
with a different
even though
plan,
I think,
clearly with a different plan and a different approach,
Yeah.
and maybe it's just a better one. I don't know.
it kind of brings us back to that very first comment we read earlier about remember when exclusives used to sell consoles? Maybe exclusives still sell consoles. I don't know. Xbox, at the same time, though, I'm not 100% convinced that Xbox cares about selling a console. And maybe all this argument is kind of moot, I think they're more worried about developers not porting their games to their console.
Yes.
But if they're not worried about selling their consoles, why would people want to do it?
Well, because, yeah, exactly. But if the games aren't on the consoles at all, it doesn't matter if they sell them or not. And you can't play it on any of their platforms, if it's not ported to Xbox. So I do think that's an issue for them. So I don't know. We'll see what Tim and Tom cook up. I mean, next thing you know, they're going to be making a new video, dropping it on the YouTubes, and saying, you see that game? You can play that game
on PlayStation.
on PlayStation. Yeah.
No, I mean maybe this is where, the next Xbox comes out and it's really just a PC, and they've developed this Xbox OS that is over the PC, and it's sort of like Steam OS. Yeah, and it has Steam, and it's just a PC that has, if you want to just treat it like an Xbox, you can, but if you want to treat it like a PC, you totally can. I really do think that'd be their best move, personally.
Yep, I do too. And I just don't know that I have anything else to tell them. I mean, I feel like we've been trying to help them out.
Hey, I mean, like, they are obviously doing their own thing. Xbox is very pro-consumer in a lot of ways, so I hope that they pull it off. I hope that whatever they're going for works for them. Obviously, selling consoles is not number one on their priority list. And I think it's, that's the reason that people are skipping. It's one, people aren't used to buying games. There's not that many games to begin with. The console sales are low. It all adds up.
It does. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And where there's fire, you ain't playing video games.
All right. You ready to move on to our next topic?
Well, no, I'm not. Because before we do that, I just want to let everybody know in YouTube land that we're currently streaming this on Twitch right now. Like, we're live. See, I just punched my microphone. You probably heard it on Twitch. And we stream on Twitch fairly often. We stream on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Sundays is when we do the podcast, and we'd love for you to come hang out with us. So hit the link in the description and come say hello.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Daniel. So the MetaQuest 3S is coming out. I think it's in a little over a week at the time that this podcast will be published on YouTube. So it's a little over a week. I am telling you, I am just getting. I've spent a lot of time looking at the MetaQuest 3S.
Okay.
I think this is a very interesting headset. I know I'm a big VR person. I know you don't love VR. It's not your thing. I know you've dabbled though.
I have dabbled, and I want to love it. I wish I could.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what they need to do is put them little moving dots on the side of the screen like Apple did in the new iOS, because that stuff helps with motion sickness. It legitimately does. And the problem with me in VR is it just makes me sick, man.
And that's, we did a whole poll about it once. You're not alone there. A lot of people get sick. But the biggest problem I had with the MetaQuest 3 was the price. I love the MetaQuest 3. I think it's super cool. I love it as a person, as an outsider who hasn't played it. I want one. I seriously just think about the MetaQuest 3 a lot and how I really want one. But it's $500. That's the problem, is the price. So this MetaQuest 3S is coming out, and it's $300. Mm-hmm. So that is a heck of a lot cheaper. And it comes out in a few weeks. And so I really wanted to just make it part of our podcast today, so I could either talk myself in or out of getting one of these. Okay. And we'll go through all of it. Okay.
So, and I know that Dan is in here poking fun at me because he knows I just don't like VR. But I do wish I could, man. That's true. But I don't. So here's the thing, the way you're like fantasizing over this like MetaQuest 3, it reminds me of when I was in like my phase of deciding or not deciding to buy a Steam Deck. That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah.
And because of that, and because of how happy the Steam Deck makes me, Randy, I say you can't take your gold with you. I say you dig it up out of the backyard and get yourself something nice, because you deserve it. Treat yourself, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But also, what can you play on the MetaQuest 3 that you can't play on the MetaQuest 2?
Okay.
Like, that's something I legit just don't know.
Yeah. There's not a whole lot right now, but one of the big ones is this new Batman Arkham VR game, which is launching with the MetaQuest 3S. And it's going to be free with the 3S. So if you buy it, you get the game for free. So it's like getting a $60 game alongside. It's already like $200 off for this headset. And you also get the game. So you could do some like fake math and tell yourself that it's even cheaper.
Yeah, how much would it come out to then? How much is the game? Is it a $60 game?
Like, I think it's a $60 game.
Well, there you go.
Like $240. It might be a $50 game.
It's less than half the price of a full price Quest 3 game, Paul. But I know there are some changes to it that maybe make it not quite as robust as a MetaQuest 3.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Let me see here. I got to find out how much that price of that is. Like,
Yeah.
how much is it? Oh, it's
Randy,
50. Okay, so
Randy
it's $50.
is doing some girl math right now, Dan. He really is.
Yeah, I'm doing some girl math. Yeah. Yeah, so it's $50, not 60. But still $50. So, and it does look really good. It's the Arkham Shadows game. That's what it's called.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure
So.
that game would be really fun. I mean, but it's not. But is it a $250 game? That's that may.
And
be
that's a great point. That's a really great point. But
there's
let's
no
go on to
guarantee
the
you're
poll
going to
here.
get another one.
Yeah. Let's go on to the poll here. We put out a poll saying, are you buying a MetaQuest 3S? A measly 3% of people said yes. 10% of people are like me and said they're considering it. And then 88% of people said no. So this is obviously not moving the needle in the quest to make VR gaming more mainstream.
That was a nice pun you made there, Randy.
Yeah.
The meta quest to make VR more mainstream. I do think
it's definitely an intended pun.
$200 off though is not nothing. Like I do think, I think the I'm considering it would be even lower if it was more close to the full price.
Right, and we probably did a poll back when the Quest 3 first was announced and came out. I don't remember, but I think the Quest 3 probably hasn't sold super well because it's $500. That's just a lot for a headset. I know I paid for $550 for the PSVR 2, but I've used it a fair amount. And it's a really nice headset. And in fact, it's probably nicer in a lot of ways than the Quest 3 is.
So why would you want the Quest 3 then? Is it just for Batman?
No. So the Quest 3, I mean, the Quest,
well, you can use it
store-
with a PC, I guess, as well.
Well, you can use the PSVR 2 with the PC now, too.
Yeah, but isn't
which
it
is also
like,
great.
what was the holdup with it? Well, that part's like super expensive or something. I don't remember. We talked about it on the podcast.
You gotta buy a little adapter box unless you have very specific GPUs. There's a couple GPUs where you can just go straight in, but generally you have to buy an adapter box. That box is like $50 or $60, so that is another. It's like, come on now.
Right.
I kind of wish that was cheaper, but you have to have that. And then it removes some of the functions of the headset. Like it has no haptic feedback. It has no HDR. It removes let me think, what else does it remove? Oh, it has no eye tracking anymore. Like a lot of the high-end features of the headset are just gone if you use it with a PC.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a bummer.
That is a bummer.
Yeah. But let's talk about the 3S and how it compares to the 3. We have a comment here from Squally Cactus. Hit us with that one, Daniel.
Old Squally said, seeing that I don't have the 3 and that I still have a 2, it depends on how it compares. So I also have a 2, Randy. Compare for me. Tell me how much better the 3S is, because I already know the 3 is a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, so basically the 3S is the 3 in terms of all the things. Well, I shouldn't say all the things that matter, but all the internals that make it a higher performing VR headset. The 3S is the same. It has no different internals that way. Where they've cut cost is the screen. It has a lower resolution screen. In fact, it has the exact same resolution screen as what's in the Quest 2. So you're not getting a resolution bump if you move from the 2 to the 3S. So that's a bit of a bummer.
And VR is more dependent on the screens inside those headsets than maybe anything. I mean, it's more important for VR to have a good screen than it is for a handheld.
Yes,
I think
100%.
And that's really something. So that may be quite the downgrade for some.
Yeah, it's quite a downgrade. It is obviously. I think the Quest 2 has a good screen in it. I keep pointing over here because I have my Quest 2 right here. My Quest 2 controller just fell behind the desk. But here's the headset. So
it's very resonant.
Yeah, very resonant. Yeah, it's a resonant desk. Resident, not resonant. But the screen in this is good. It's not a bad screen. Things look pretty good. But after using the PSVR 2, you realize screens can be better.
Oh,
so Screens can definitely be better than that.
Yeah, I mean,
The
you can
next,
tell when you're using the Quest 2. I mean, the screen does look good, but you can like poke holes in it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. The next thing that they have decreased, because it's less screen, they've also decreased the field of view. So the field of view is no longer, it was expanded on the 3. The 3S, the field of view is back down to the exact same field of view that is on the Quest 2, which I think is 90 degrees. So, and again, it's like kind of like not an upgrade over the Quest 2 in
Right.
field of view anymore.
And a narrow field of view is one of the primary things that contribute to motion sickness.
Yes, exactly.
That's
I think
one of the reasons Sea of Thieves can get you, because the highest field of view you can get on that game is 90.
Yeah.
I think.
The
Pretty sure
3S, I'm sorry, the 3 has like a 110 degree field of view. So it's a fairly significant bump in FOV. So that's another thing. The next thing that they have downgraded is it's in the next comment. So let's go to this next comment. This is from JOTR, who says, they lost me with downgrading the lenses and resolution. Pancake lenses are the way to go. So this is the one that is probably the biggest downgrade from the 3 to the 3S. It seems small, but they have changed the lenses. So I don't know what they're called. The lenses that are in the like 2 and in most VR headsets, they're kind of just like a traditional lens, because you have a screen that's like just like an inch away from your eye, right? So
Right.
you have to have a lens to be able to focus on those pixels that are super close to your eye. And the type of lens that most VR headsets, it's kind of like a normal lens, but it has some issues in that you pretty much, there's a sweet spot like right in the middle. That's why you have to adjust the headset and get it on just right, and then to get everything in focus. Otherwise, things are blurry, stuff like that, right? For the Quest 3, they added these things called pancake lenses. And I don't know much about them. I know that the Apple Vision Pro and this Quest 3
The 3.
has pancake lenses. And apparently the great thing about those is that you don't have to rely on a sweet spot in the lens. You can just kind of throw the headset on and things are going to be in focus and sharp without having to make any adjustments, because the lenses are completely different, like the anatomy of them and the physics behind them.
Okay. That's interesting. Did they mention like any way that the headset like fits better or is more usable with glasses?
The 3S and the 3 come built in with glasses spacers.
Okay.
On the Quest 2, it came with a glasses spacer, but it was like optional.
Yeah.
And you could remove it and take it on and off.
Yeah, and I used it, I'm pretty sure, and I never enjoy. I just don't enjoy cramming my glasses into these headsets, But I know that some of them, like you can like get lenses for, like corrective lenses,
Yes.
So
yeah, like
I
we had
figure
that
you can do
live
that for
comment here
Quest 3.
from Dan, who said, I was buying glasses online and saw they were selling prescription lenses for the Meta headset. And that's definitely a thing that you can do.
Yeah, that would be so much better.
100%. It's got to be better, right?
So-
I mean, like, I think the glasses spacers do work, but I don't know, because then you're doing lenses on lenses, and I bet your sweet spot starts to get even smaller. I could imagine. I obviously don't know that for sure, but I could guess like that maybe it might make things a little harder for you to get it perfect.
Oh yeah, I've never had a perfect experience in a VR headset. And
So there you go.
hearing you talk about these lenses and thinking about the resolution, I'm not sure. Like, what would I almost don't understand the point of buying a 3S, especially if you have a 2. If you don't have a 2, I can understand I 100% can understand you buying a 3S over a 2. But I don't know.
Yeah, because it's $100 more than a 2.
But I don't know
But
why
you
you would upgrade to a 3S when you have a 2, unless you just
I know.
have to
It's
play
just
Batman.
it's one, it's the Batman thing. I mean, one of the big upgrades, obviously it has more power. It's able to run games better. And it does have some exclusives, but it also has the color pass-through cameras. If you've used the pass-through cameras on the Quest 2, you know that it's black and white, pretty
they
low
suck.
resolution. It's not good. The pass-through cameras are much better on the 3 and the 3S, so you do get that benefit, and it's in color. So
Okay. Yeah.
So,
I'm
I
not
don't know.
sold yet.
yeah, I'm definitely still really want a 3, but the 3S is like tempting because it's $200 cheaper. The 3 is still $500. I mean, it may go on sale. We may get like a Black Friday sale on the 3, and then like all of a sudden it's, $100 off or something, and I might jump on that. I just don't know.
Yeah, I think it would be a better call to spend 4 on a 3 than 3 on a 3S.
Yeah, and you might be right about that. You might be right.
But 5 is tough.
Yeah, $500 is a lot for a VR headset when I already have a really nice VR headset that costs more than $500, and then I can use it on my computer, and it is tough. We have another live comment here. This one's from Dan, who says the prescription lens is only $50. Ooh, that's not bad. Yeah,
Well,
that's $50 is not that much. That's really pretty decent if you wanted to get into VR and you're like hate having to wear glasses when you do it.
Was that one of the? Was that like your iBuy Direct or something, Dan? Was that one of those websites? Because I have used iBuy Direct.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to know.
Yeah, I never even thought about it being that easy or that cheap. Yep. I guess that just goes to show you that glasses companies really charge you for the frames.
They really do, man. Glasses, you talk about a racket. Glasses. It's from Zenny. Not a sponsor. Not getting sponsored by Zenny.
Gotcha. Yeah. But they can be if they want to be. Reach out, Zenny.
Yeah. All right, we have one more comment here.
Yep, this one's from Mr. Foxhat, who said, why would I buy something that will end up getting replaced in half a console generation? And I didn't realize we were talking, about... I was going to make a joke about the next Nintendo console, but it's a bad joke because they won't replace it for about 2 console generations. They won't replace it in a half. So I had to punt on that joke about halfway through. But I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, like VR headsets, the technology is changing. Like VR is so new. I think the technology in VR is progressing faster than what we see in like other gaming, things.
Yes.
So they are coming along much faster because it's just newer. Exactly. It's just newer. So they are getting refreshed faster. It feels like it hasn't been that long since the Quest 3 came out. The Quest 3S comes out pretty quick. But it doesn't feel like it's been that long since the Quest 2 came out.
No, it doesn't. I've also been glancing off camera because I have my 2S over here being a counterweight on a microphone stand. Or not my 2S, my 2, sorry. But it doesn't feel that old to me. I know it's a few years, but...
Yeah, it's a number of years old, but... and it's still a good headset, and that's what makes me like... Man, I think after... I really wanted to just talk about this, because the more I talk about it, the more I think like, yeah, I think if I were to get this... the reason I was leaning towards the 3S is like, I could get into the 3 ecosystem on a budget, But I really think...
ecosystem. They gonna sell you a watch and a phone too, Grandpa?
You know what I mean? I could get into the Quest 3. They're it's really nice having these standalone headsets, having no wire. It's just really, really nice. It's a great VR experience. But
definitely.
But I already have other VR outlets. I already have a high-end headset. I have the 2 for if I need to play something that's on Quest. There's this one game, and who knows, it may get ported to PSVR 2. I don't know. But I think that thinking about the resolution, the field of view, those pancake lenses, those are the huge things that I think really make the 3 a very high-end VR headset.
Yeah.
I just don't know if I want to miss out on those things because it feels like they've just downgraded it to the same as what the 2 was. And it's like...
They should have called it a 2S, not a 3S. Because it seems like an upgraded 2 more than any type of 3 to me.
Yeah, it feels like a 2.5, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely feels like a 2.5. And saying 3S would almost trick people into thinking it's 3.5.
Or they could have called it a 3 Lite or something,
But then, I would have thought, oh, is it a lighter headset?
Yeah.
I don't know. That might have been a misleading name.
The 3 dumbed down. I don't know.
Right.
The 3 for the people who can't afford it.
Yeah. They just call it do you really have to play Batman? Just call it
if you really want to play the Batman game, here you go. Yeah, it's kind of a good point. It's like I'm afraid that if I got a 3S, I would feel like it just wasn't that much of an upgrade over the 2, and then I would regret not spending the extra money on a proper 3 and getting the full high-end experience.
And then a few months later or a year later, when Batman gets ported to the PSVR 2,
then it would really hurt me.
Talk about egg in the beard. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yikes!
All right.
I don't want that to happen to you, Grandpa. But you got anything else for us on the VR?
No,
I know this was here for you to
this was
give
my,
your love
this
letter.
was me.
So
this was me. Yeah, I know that this part of the podcast was just really to get. I love VR so much, and it's good to occasionally be able to talk about it.
Yep, I get that.
All right, but speaking of something that is maybe a little more towards both of us, we'll get to that in a second. But first, I want to plug our Discord server. So, guys, we have a Discord server. We would love for you to join. There's an invite link in the description. It's just a cool place to hang out, to talk to like-minded gamers. It's a small community. We have like 80-something people. It's not very big, and it's just very welcoming. Come hang out with us. Talk about video games. We put these polls in the Discord server. We talk about them there, too. So if you have game opinions, it's a great place to voice them.
Absolutely. And, I want to rephrase this. Randy said we have 80-something people. I would like to rephrase that with we have 80-something people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's exciting.
Come make it 80-something plus one. Okay? All right.
Yeah, I did say server this time. Yes. I called it the correct thing.
Yeah. I didn't even catch that because it was correct. Okay, Randy. So our last topic is kind of a broad one. We just want to talk about, is anyone playing Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom?
Yeah, absolutely. So I finally got on the Echoes of Wisdom bandwagon here a little late, but exciting that working with Nintendo, they were kind enough to send over a copy of the game, and working through that was the reason I had to get started a little late. So I have been playing it and really enjoying it, but I don't think you're not playing it, right?
No, Nintendo didn't send me a code because I don't make the TikToks. So no, I'm not playing it yet, but I want a physical copy. So
I kind of want a physical copy too.
I was looking on Amazon before we started the podcast actually to see if I could quickly order one, and I guess I could have, but I got confused because it tried to. I accidentally almost bought a UK one, and then
it doesn't matter though.
Well,
Switch, it's region free.
I guess that's true. But it was this is a UK import. Do you want to continue? And I was like, no, of course not. I'm terrified. And then you signed on to Discord, so I don't have one bought yet, but I'm gonna pick one up. I'm excited to eventually.
I've had that happen a couple times on Amazon where I've mistakenly bought the UK version of the game, and it has some different box stuff. Have the rating is different, and there may be some different stuff on the back, but otherwise it's the same.
Well, I don't want the different stuff on the back, Randy. I want the regular old.
You want the ESRB on the front, and you want
That's right. That's right, and I'll get it. I may swing by the old Walmart at some point and pick one up, or I'll just buy one through Amazon and just wait because I'm in no rush really. But I do want to check it out. It looks cool. It might be kind of a last hurrah for me in the Switch as far as a new game. I don't know that I'm going to be picking up Brothership. Maybe I will, but I don't know that I am.
I'm interested in Brothership, but we'll probably keep our conversation here about Echoes of Wisdom. But yeah.
Yep. Well.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it may end up being the last big one for me in the Switch. So, I do want to play it, but I'm not yet.
Well, let's look at our polls. We put out a poll asking just everybody: are you playing The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom? 13% of people said yes. 44% of people said no, but I plan on it eventually. 30% said no, I'm not interested. And then 13% don't even know what Echoes of Wisdom is.
Yeah, so, a lot of people in the same boat as me saying no, but I will. Only 13% saying they're playing it right now, but we do have 30% saying no and not interested. I don't know. I was surprised and maybe also not surprised by that because it is a Zelda game, so I would think people would be interested, but it is also a different kind of Zelda game in a few different ways. So,
yes,
maybe that kind of explains that.
Yeah, it's definitely not your traditional, neither your traditional 2D Zelda nor your traditional 3D Zelda. It is its own thing. And one, you play as a character you've never played as in a Zelda game, which is oddly enough is Zelda. So I think for a lot of reasons, some people are not interested in it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's exactly right. It's a very different kind of game, and I think some people are choosing to skip.
Absolutely. Yep. But still, I mean, like we always say, like 50% is our sweet spot of like, if it has 50% of people saying yes, or that they're playing on it, that it's got a pretty good amount of hype behind it. So this one does cross over that. So that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. That would bring it to 57. So not bad. It's got,
Not bad
it
at all.
does have the Zelda name behind it. So I think that is to be expected too.
Yeah, but it's also a console exclusive, which hurts it a little bit. Like because if people aren't into the Switch ecosystem, which I think by now a lot of people are, but still, there are some people who are holdouts and never got a Switch, and at this point, it's kind of a tough argument to say like, hey, you should be going to get a Switch right now.
Yeah, I don't think Echoes of Wisdom is moving a whole lot of new Switches to people that didn't have one before. It does have that Switch Lite that's coming out.
Yeah,
Or
I think that's
came
probably
out,
going
I
to
guess.
sell well. Yeah, I don't know if
looks
it's out
nice.
yet.
It
It probably
continues the
is.
trend. It continues the trend of like gold Zelda handhelds, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like it a lot better than the like what was it? The Skyward Sword. We had the Joy-Con for Skyward
Yeah.
Sword, and Tears of the Kingdom had a pretty nice Switch OLED.
Yes, it did.
But I think the Switch Lite for Echoes of Wisdom is my favorite. It's probably my favorite Switch Lite, and definitely my favorite Zelda console.
Yeah. Oh, I would agree with that. We got a live comment here from 12 Falcon Punch who said, "I got the Tears of the Kingdom OLED, and it's pretty." I bet it is pretty, man.
Yeah, it's really nice. It is cool. I did you see the things that on the back? There's those the printing on the back. Got to be careful. Don't clean it with rubbing alcohol. It
I
rubs
did.
it right off.
I did see that. That is crazy. Because I'm sure
Yeah.
people clean electronics with rubbing alcohol from time
Oh,
to
I
time.
clean electronics with rubbing alcohol all the time. I'll use like that 90%
Yeah.
alcohol, and I'll clean electronics with it. I've cleaned, all kinds of stuff. Controllers, like when I buy controllers on eBay, the first thing I'll do is take alcohol to them and clean them up.
Right.
You got to be careful doing that with the Tears of the Kingdom. I think it might be generally maybe even all the Switches that have the printed backs that have like because it has like the white printing on the black background. I don't think it's just or it has like a gray or something. It's not just
Yeah.
like one color.
Well, maybe Nintendo needs to stop printing these things in like, Crayola magic marker.
Yeah, it needs to be like engraved or something.
It needs to at least be Sharpie.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, let's go into our comment here.
Let's do
Our
it.
first comment on this.
First comment is from Alexander Burkhart, who said, I wasn't going to buy it, but I couldn't find Astrobot, so I settled. Surprisingly difficult game so far, however. I expected it to be entry-level easy, but have been pleasantly proven wrong. Settled.
This is interesting. Like one settled for it. I mean, obviously it's actually a very different game from Astrobot. I think you should go back and play Astrobot if you can find it, because it is fantastic. I think you would really, really like it. That just goes for everybody. You should play Astrobot. It is fantastic. It reminds me of Nintendo games in so many ways. But
For sure.
this comment saying that it's surprisingly difficult is interesting. I personally, I'm probably like, I've done maybe like a couple of the main dungeons, which is really cool. This game does have dungeons, which is like cool throwback to the old style of Zelda. And they're pretty, I wouldn't say they're like 100% traditional, but they're way more traditional than say like the Divine Beasts or, like the temples in Tears of the Kingdom. They're not like that. Like people say those are dungeon replacements, but they're really nothing like dungeons, right?
Right. I think the consensus was that they might have been a little bit of a poor substitute for a dungeon, if that's what you wanted, was a dungeon.
Yeah.
And, I would wonder, as somebody who hasn't played this yet, if the game is maybe surprising you with how hard it is, have you tried stacking beds?
Yeah.
I've seen some things on YouTube. Man, I've seen some people go some places with some beds.
Yeah. It's so funny. In the game, you create these echoes, so you can go around, you can learn, pretty much any enemy you come across, any item that you come across. The first time you come across it, you can learn it, and then you can reproduce it infinitely. Well, not infinitely, you have an amount of time, but you can do it over and over, right? So like you're limited by how much you can't do it. Like in the beginning you can only do 3, then you can kind of gradually rank up how many you can do at a time. But
Is it based off how long Try's tail is?
yes, yeah. And so you level up Try. So Try's tail starts out with 3 little segments, and so then you can add more segments as you go.
Do they do a good job, or do they even address why Try's name is Try, which means 3, comes from the Triforce, which has 3 triangles, but eventually you can have more? Is that addressed, or am I just nitpicking?
It hasn't been addressed yet, but it is true that initially there are 3, and it does. If you add them all together, you get the perfect little Triforce, and you can get more. It hasn't been addressed yet in the game. Maybe it will get addressed. I don't know.
It's gonna be like a mega Triforce, like a I don't know, like maybe 9 of them, like 3 squared. I don't know.
I'm really excited to see how many you can get. I'm really interested. But you can, as you learn these things, you learn a lot. Like that's one of the biggest frustrations people have had with the game, is that once you've learned so many, like sorting through them is kind of tough, because you'll be like, oh, I want to use this, but you have this big. If you played Tears of the Kingdom, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like say you're adding something to your bow, you'll have this big long list of stuff that you can like attach to your bow. Yes. Well, it's the same thing here, and you got to scroll through it. It is a little frustrating.
Yeah, that was frustrating in Tears of the Kingdom. So I can imagine bringing that mechanic back. Can you sort them again? Can you?
Yeah, and I was going to get at. You can sort them in a number of different ways. You can sort them in the order that you learned them, by oldest or newest. You can sort them by which one you most frequently use, exactly. And then you can also sort them by type. But generally I sort them by most frequently used. And my number 1 most frequently used item, 100%, it's the bed. The bed is the most useful item in the entire game.
That's what the reviews make it seem like.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the beginning of Tears of the Kingdom. And I think we all did it. When we're all in the Sky Island or wherever you start. I don't remember what it was called. And you just start fusing trees together just to see if you can get to the top of that cliff, and you can. Yep. And then you do that occasionally for the rest of the game. That's what the beds kind of remind me of. And I'm not saying it's bad, because I love Tears of the Kingdom. I just think it's kind of funny that there's like a clear parallel there.
It's the shape of the beds. It's because you can stack them like kind of like this.
Yeah, you make like stairs.
You can kind of make stairs, right? And you can't make stairs out of anything else. So it's like you just end up stacking a bed. And they're also, items have different amount of like points they use. So the little segments of Try, some of them use 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on how like good the item is. Beds are 1. So, you can just kind of you can make a bunch of them. So
right. Now, I wonder why they didn't just give you a stairs or ladder echo.
Maybe there is one later in the game. Maybe
Yeah.
there is. I just haven't run across it yet.
True.
Who knows? That may be out there.
Yeah. Alrighty. We got another comment here from Landon Stallings. Randy, I did tell you I would take the long one, but I just read one. Are you up for it?
Yeah, I'm down. I'm down.
Okay, go for it.
Landon says, I picked it up at release and played for about 6 hours. I've been very underwhelmed so far, but I also disliked Tears of the Kingdom and wasn't a big fan of Breath of the Wild. So maybe these games just aren't for me anymore. The series has just changed too much, in my opinion, and they don't deliver on the things I come to Zelda for. I don't plan on returning to it.
That just broke my damn heart, Landon.
Oh, no, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, if you don't like Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, this game is obviously super, super inspired by those.
Yeah. And the part that is sad, like I was joking about, you saying you don't like Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. I already knew that. But the part about you saying that maybe Zelda just, it just ain't, it doesn't do what it used to do for me anymore. Like, that's kind of sad to me, that people that have like come to Zelda for this certain formula or this certain type of game feel like they're just not being served anymore,
Yeah,
at least
it is. I kind of feel like this game will do that for some people, but it's obvious that the focus on being like creativity being the number one thing that they're focusing on, like solving problems, doing combat, like finding your way through with your own, finding your own path through the tools that they give you is their main focus.
Yeah.
And it's definitely true in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, especially Tears of the Kingdom, right?
Oh, yeah.
And this game for sure as well. That's the main focus of what they want you to get out of it, is using your creativity to solve the problems.
Yes. And I think that is fun. But
Yeah.
I could see even though I love Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I do think I could get burned out on that. You know, kind of like how I was all about open world games for a long time and eventually kind of got burned out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could see myself eventually just being like, just make the game that you want me to play, you know, and I could see myself missing that.
Yeah, I mean, like that linear thing that Zeldas were, like obviously there were puzzles and stuff, but it was a pretty linear format, you know, you just did the things that you were supposed to do. And there really wasn't a whole lot of like creativity in how you solve problems. You just had to figure out how to solve the problems and move through, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And Echoes of Wisdom is sort of like a half step because it does have traditional dungeons where you're going and finding the keys, unlocking the doors, unlocking the boss doors, like doing all, you know, very traditional, very much like your top-down Zeldas of the past. But how you solve the problems within those dungeons is going to have that same like creative flow to it that you got from like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
Right. And that is very different than what it used to be. So
very different. But it's also a lot of fun. But I mean, like,
it is.
You got to like that aspect of it. You got to like feeling that like hodge, like kind of, I was gonna say like hodgepodging your way through it, but really it's not that. It's kind of like creating little cheats for yourself is the game, you know? Like I came to this room in a dungeon and there were all these fans blowing on the pathways. And it was obviously that you were supposed to like figure out what could you use to get yourself through these, like they would knock you into a pit, you know, like the wind would knock you off. And it would be like, what are you going to use to make it so that you can get through? You have all these items at your disposal. Like, what can you do? And I figured out that you could just lock onto the things, pick them up and drop them into the pit. And you could just, you know, just bypass the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff could be fun for some and very disappointing for others.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem kind of weird that they would go through the trouble of making that puzzle, but then just give you so many tools to just skip it.
Yeah.
That does seem weird. You know, I don't know if you watched Beat 'em Up's video on Echoes of Wisdom, but I watched it a little bit. And one of the things that he said was cheating is fun. So it's funny that you say that.
Yeah, it really is. It feels like they want you to cheat. Like, and that it's like everything they give you is like, it feels like you're cheating the system. Mm-hmm. Because there's so many options, it's not like they can plan for everything. So they kind of have to embrace that, like, you're going to cheat your way through this. But
right.
I do think that for certain people, you could play that and be like, well, that's very disappointing because I feel like I'm not really doing anything like the game wants me to do. I'm just cheating my way through it because there's this obvious solution that I can do that's just the easiest thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to do it every time, you know?
Yeah. And I totally understand why somebody would feel that way. You know, I haven't played the game yet, so I don't know how prevalent that feeling is. But I can tell you that if it is constant, and I don't feel like the cheating... I mean, the thing is like, I feel like if they are going to encourage you to quote-unquote cheat, then they should make it so that the quote-unquote cheating also is a puzzle. You know, like it's like a puzzle to skip a puzzle, almost. Like, but I know that's really hard to do when they give you things like stackable beds and platforms that move. And
yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's always like they give you these situations that you're put in where it's like there's a number of ways you could solve it. There might be like one way that they're thinking you're probably going to, but I think that most of them are set up in a way that like you could think in a number of different ways and you might have 10 people come across it and you might have 10 different solutions to it.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of cool though in a lot of ways.
That is cool. Yeah. I think that's cool too.
We have one last comment here. Not so much about Echoes of Wisdom. I mean, it kind of relates. It kind of brings back to something you said earlier about this may be your last new game hurrah with the Switch.
Yeah, that's right. We got a comment from Posit MF. Posit said, I'm done with Nintendo until Switch 2. Haven't touched my Switch in like 3 years. So you're going to have to help me out with this one, Randy.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't understand the username, first of all.
I don't either, though. I can't help you with that.
Did I mispronounce it? Is it supposed to be Posit MF?
I'm not sure. I can't help you with that, but I can help you with this thing that you struggled with, which is Switch 2. What was meant to be put was the successor to the Nintendo Switch. This was just a typo.
Oh, well, why didn't you say that, Posit? So I see where you're coming from there. I went through quite a break with my Switch as well. And it was the idea of eventually getting the successor to the Nintendo Switch that made me kind of come back to it and realize that I still love it. Not that I forgot I loved it, but realize it maybe still had a place, But I could see how you would take a 3-year break. I mean, I do understand how some people could pull that off, especially as the Switch continues to get longer in the tooth. And it just seems like any damn day Nintendo's going to finally give us some hope, but it just ain't happened yet.
It hasn't happened. But I mean, you think 3 years was 2021. At that point, the Switch was 4 years old, and it had already had a ton of games come out for it.
Yeah. You could have had a ton of fun with your Switch for 4 years and gotten your money's worth,
Totally.
You could have played your Breath of the Wilds and your Mario Odysseys and your Smashes and your Mario Karts and who knows whatever other indie games and other exclusives that I glossed over. But you could have had a lot of fun for 4 years.
Totally. But that's what's so cool about the Switch. Like, normally consoles have like a good, say, 4 years or so, and then they start to slow down. The Switch hasn't really slowed down, in my opinion. Like, maybe it's slowed down a little bit. Like, this past year has felt a little bit slower, but not really. I mean, not so much that it's like, man, it's really slow. Like, I haven't played my Switch in a long time because there just hasn't been anything to play. I have played the Switch consistently the entire life. I've never taken any extended breaks from it. I've consistently played it for the past 7+ years now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that long ago Nintendo dropped that big direct that told us about, Echoes of Wisdom and Brothership and games like that were coming, and everybody was like, well, hell, I guess they're going to go out fairly strong, So, yeah, I think the output has been pretty good. But if there's nothing that's, interested you, then I see that. I went through a phase where my Switch was basically a big Smash machine. Actually, it was
and then you got a Steam Deck, and then it was like, your handheld time was taken up by, the new hotness.
Yeah, and it pretty much still is.
Mm-hmm.
I can't...
Unless some game comes around that, brings you to your Switch.
Yes, but I do default to the Steam Deck, that's for sure.
Which the great thing about...
that's no surprise to anybody here.
No. The great thing about the Switch is that we have gotten consistent exclusives that do bring you back. So if you have one, there's been reasons to revisit it. So I wouldn't say like, hey, if you haven't touched your Switch in like 3 years, you have a lot of games to catch up on that you would probably really enjoy. Echoes of Wisdom being one of them.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right, Randy, you got anything else about Zelda?
Nope, that's it for me.
Okay. Well, we're nearing the end of our podcast here. And I know that's really sad because that means that it would be over, and you wouldn't get any more of us, for the day or whatever time you're watching this. But I'm here to help, okay? So we record a bonus episode every time we do the podcast. As soon as we hit cut, we hit start. That's not entirely true. It takes about 90 seconds. But we do start pretty quickly, and you can access that bonus episode by becoming a podcast member and hitting that join button. Today on the bonus episode, we're going to be talking again about the ever-looming all-digital future and maybe some steps that have been taken in certain regions that maybe make that a little better. And we also want to take this time to shout out our current podcast members. So we really appreciate you guys. That's Heck, Landon, Guy, and Kit.
Yes, and anyone who's watching live on Twitch, it is the join button on the YouTube of Gaming Gig Podcast. That's where you would become a member to get that bonus episode. We do post those on YouTube. They come out on Mondays right after the main podcast is also posted.
That's right. So if you do that, we appreciate it, but it is certainly
Yeah,
not
it's-
expected.
No, absolutely. But if you do enjoy the podcast and you want to support it and you want the bonus episode, it's there for you.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, until next time, I'm Randy.
And I'm Daniel.
And this has been Gaming Gig.
Peace out.